Hello, this is a quick demonstration video of how to use the Scope 3.9 Downstream Transport and Distribution data input sheet. This is a tool for game developers to use to calculate the energy consumption and emissions from the downloads associated with games. So I'll just talk you through the structure of the sheet first, and then I'll work you through the steps. So at the beginning, at the top here, we have a set of instructions. I recommend you read those through. The next section is basic game settings. This is where you will put in the name of your game and the file size in gigabytes for your game that you're calculating. And then the only other thing you need to select up here is the reporting period. So this is just picking what year you are reporting on. And that sets a bunch of other variables based on global energy consumption figures and things like that. Below that, we have variables that are used in the calculations to do with the network intensity of sending data across the internet and processing it as downloads, and global internet speeds, and a few other variables. Below the basic settings, we have our first component. So there are three components. Component A is installs. So this is the initial install that players do for your game. Part B is updates that they download as part of the live service game. And then part C is the device itself as it's downloading. But we'll just look at the installs for now. So any one of these red columns is one that you may input data into. So for example here, we've just got this game here, and we've got the number of installs for each country. And we also have the option to override the file size of that game. So if you remember, back up in the basic settings, we set the file size earlier, but if we have additional language files in a particular region, we can include that here. If you don't have any information, it just uses the default you put above. The next couple of columns calculate the energy consumption of the internet infrastructure between the data center and your users. And then the next one along is the data center component itself. And so if you already are in contact with your data center, your digital distribution platform, and you know what sort of energy consumption is involved, how many kilowatt hours of power they use to send a gigabyte of data across the internet, you can input that here. For most of us, that's probably not something we have access to yet. That's something that we need our ecosystem partners to be involved in. So we have some worst case scenario default values based on kind of global estimates instead that are doing our that are behind our calculations. So if you don't have that, you just leave it blank, and then that's it. And we get a calculation for the energy consumption and the emissions based on the location, based on the country. And we just sort of add that up. If you are downloading games or distributing games through Steam, then you will have access to the Steam partner backend, and in that case, it's even simpler. So here's an example Steam output from another, from just like a small indie game. It's all of the downloads up until about May 2025. And what you do is it just Steam outputs the country and the number of downloads, and we take those two columns. It's really simple. We just copy and paste them into the Steam downloads section. So this is now in a new tab. This is the blank one where you can put your data. And I'm just copying and pasting the values only. And there we go. So we now need to put in, say what our name is. We'll say test game 1, and say that's all of ours. And then once we put the name and the file size up in here, we'll get some emissions total. So test game 1, if it's 10 gigabyte file, here with the number of downloads in the United States and Australia, we're automatically calculating those energy consumption figures. And that's it. That's pretty much all there is to it. That's how you use the Scope 3.9 Downstream Transport and Distributions data input sheet. If you go to get hold of that data, you just go to the Steam backend and navigate to downloads by region, set the date that you want the data for, view it as a CSV, download it, and you'll get it in that format where you literally just copy it across. For other platforms like the app stores, very similar process, copy and paste. Okay, so what can you do with this data now that you have calculated the steam energy consumption and emissions? Well, number one, you can see what regions you might want to prioritize compressing or downsizing game files to optimize for energy consumption and emissions. That might be things like excluding high resolution textures, making them an optional download. You can also ask your digital distribution partner for their data center energy consumption. You can take this to them and say, okay, how much better is it in actual reality? So these are, again, worst case scenario figures. The reality will probably be lower emissions than this. And lastly, the other thing you can do with it is share this data with the SGA so that we can help you to understand it, connect you with our network of SGA members, work together to reduce the impact on the planet from this really important part of the games industry. We want to share solutions together. We want to identify them and disseminate them, make them common practice, make it really easy for games to become the most sustainable form of entertainment on the planet. Thank you.